sorry, where was that located?
What?
Where was that located? You said
The
that.
Harrison place.
It's in the back of the plantation. It's off Harrison Creek Road now, if you go out there. But there were several people who came when the plantation started, and their children attended the Montessori school, and it was started in the Harrison house.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought Harrison Creek was up by the American Beach. Is Harrison Creek further
It
down?
goes,
It's on the other side. Boy, I heard about 20 voices there, I'm sorry.
I don't know, on the other side.
I don't have a good map that shows the
Mary, yes.
Harrison Island.
It's called, excuse me, if you go, the two circles that go
Right.
around Amelia Island, if you take the one that goes to the right and just keep going, you will see a road. I'm sure it says Harrison Creek Road or Harrison Cemetery, but you know, it's marked, you can go to it. And it's on the left side back there, where there are two houses there now, where the dig was.
Yes,
American Beach.
And where would the church be in relation to that?
to the house,
Yes.
right underneath. All those barriers, right underneath. That's, that is true. There's lots of things I've said tonight that are hypothetical, but that is true. You take one thing away with you tonight. That should be it. Yes?
Do you think they knew when they built the house what they were building
Oh,
on?
no.
Or they were just building on a flat or
I have a question. Did you buy Majolica or Colonial Ware?
Kelowna ware, yes. That Kelowna ware is Native American copies of European vessel forms, like plates with little rims on the bottom of them so they don't move. That's not something that you got in prehistory, so they made those. We found the most common one was candlestick holders. I'm crazy about those candlestick holders. And I think we found one sort of goblet-looking thing. It looked like maybe it would have been a very rough earthenware chalice. And brimmed bowls.
Were they decorated differently than the other pottery, you think?
No, except the brim bowls tended to be red filmed, and that was not a Wally technique, something that probably the Spanish taught them.
Where is all this pottery and bowls and chalices that you
At the University of Florida, in their collections.
Would you have found European pottery?
We found a ton of stuff from the Harrison thing, and we found a handful of Majolica, but again, the poor supply of these missions meant that they had to rely on Native American pottery, which is why it lasted and was as stable as it was. I had one more thing from Majolica. Oh, olive jar. We found a reasonable amount of olive jars. Are those big, huge shipping jars that from Spain they would send olive oil and wine and other things over, and then they became kind of all-purpose storage jars for dry and wet storage. So wherever there is Spanish, there is some olive jar. Pretty much.
Did you find British pottery?
Well, yes, lots from the plantation period.
More than the Spanish?
Oh, yes. Again, because there was no supply. I mean, the one thing those friars complained about day in and day out was how they had not enough wine for the service, they didn't have any candles for the service, they didn't have any wheat to make proper toasts, so they had to make do.
Is any of this work written up in a report or a publication?
Well, I published my dissertation, which is mostly about pottery.
Pottery, yes,
I mean,
I
I
gather
apologize
that.
for that, but there's a little intro to each section that has a lot of that in there. Jerry Milanich, my major professor, recently published a book called Playing in the Fields of the Lord, which would probably be a really good introduction to mission period stuff. It's not just Amelia Island, but it's the mission period in Florida.
Yeah. You talked about this all as Wali. What happened to the Temucas?
Well, the Temucua stayed in and around St. Augustine and below, but they stayed in. This is really interesting because we used to think that we would be able to always follow the Timucua by their distinctive pottery. That's the local pottery, and the Wali come in and they bring pottery that's very different. And so when the Wali pottery eventually, or actually rather quickly, by 1690, let's say, just blanketed everything. So it looked like there were no more Timucua, and there were no more Mocama. But you know what? They just started making Wali pottery. They did. And I think that's, again, because the Spanish preferred it. It was more like Spanish cooking jars than any of the other kind of pottery. It had the same kind of thermal properties that the Spanish expected from pottery. And so, because they demanded it, everybody was probably filling a little market demand, and everybody started making it. So this is a fairly new result. We kept, where did they go, in fact? But you know, the last, something like 23 or 27 Timucua, the last of the Native Americans affiliated with San Augustine, bundled out of here with the Spanish for Cuba at the end of the first Spanish period. That was it, yeah.
I knew that, but I didn't know that they, I mean, you implied, I thought that they all left the island by the 1690s. I mean, what
In 1702, yes, everything was all the missions were destroyed, and there were a few remnant missions, all carefully identified as to which ethnic group was inhabiting them, all sort of under the guns of the Castillo de San Marcos around there. But they're pretty pitiful, and folks were, at this point, pretty much heading for British territory as fast as their feet could take them.
But they come back to Amelia Island after that, still during the first Spanish period.
You don't see a lot. You don't see a lot of Native American habitation. I think the women, anyway, are marrying Spanish. You know, they're busy fomenting a Creole culture in St. Augustine. You know, it's hard to say what happened to those Wali men, or Timucua men for that matter. I think a lot of them became Yamasi and hung out with them until 1715 and the Great Yamasi War, when the British pretty much got rid of the Yamasi.
What I was talking about earlier, I was trying to, over there where the Goffinsville Park is now, I found when I was there before they did the construction of the actual park and pretty much asphalted everything, I found Indian trade beads, and I found some early stone beads, pre-contact type stone beads. I donated them over to the park, and they're having them looked at now. And they may possibly go into display down below whenever they certify them.
Oh, that's great.
Being authentic and everything. And like I said, there was a small Spanish mission type building over there of some sort. I'm not thinking it's a main mission, but possibly a smaller mission. They wiped out the one area where, from what I could tell, there was some type of a trade building of sort where there was a truckloads of the glass type beads. And I even found some of the early slave, you know, red and black with the black heart slave beads, the candy stripe red and blacks, the all-way beads.
Have you been in touch with your FPAN archaeologist about this?
I've talked to him over there, and I'm sure he's talked to her over here, and I've talked to these people here.
But you, sir, that he's talking, well, hey,
That's
I
the way
didn't
to
know
do
that
it.
was you.
Unfortunately, there aren't enough archaeologists to go around to all these sites, and that's the sad
I
thing.
know. Well, I'm
And give them all jobs.
Well, I'm trying to, what I found there before they paved out that whole area. I went in there and saved what I could before the bulldozers got through. You know, and like I said, I turned over what I found.
You know, I worked here for so many years, back when they
Like I
were
said,
doing
I do
this.
believe there was a small minor mission.
You remember me when I was
Oh, I know.
Building over there. There's a village up on top of it.
Mom's like, you know, dad's retired.
I saw him not too long ago in Publix one day, on a motorized scooter.
Yeah, you can't walk distance.
Dr. Saunders might be able to stick around for a few more minutes and talk to you all about We really appreciate Dr. Saunders
You don't
coming
want to
here
sit
from
for another couple
Louisiana.
hours, I can go through my dissertation.
We're really grateful to FPAN for helping facilitate all this. Hopefully we'll see you at Sunday's membership party and our next round back. Have a great evening.